We are talking about all the latest NHL trade talk, including Jake Debrusk in Boston, who apparently has requested a trade and wants out of the Bruins organization. What will happen with Evander Kane? He's cleared waivers, but now there's a lot of chatter about a potential trade, maybe even to his hometown Vancouver Canucks. We also have word on the Canucks getting a lot of calls for Captain Bo Horvat. Will they start to make trades soon? A word is being said with the current Vancouver situation. We also have a lot more updates on the whole deal with Montreal, potential candidates to the new GM, and some more additional details have been revealed regarding that whole situation that unfolded yesterday. We also have a lot of updates too when it comes to a suspension, injuries, and more. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. Of course, we had a video out earlier covering a few news items. The big news this morning was the confirmation of the sale of the Pittsburgh Penguins to the Fenway Sports Group. Of course, that already was discussed in the other video. If you want full details, that's on the channel already. The other big news we got today as well is we got word Minnesota Wild are going to do for the first time ever in franchise history, we're going to retire a jersey number. They're retiring former captain and longtime player Mikko Koivu. His number 9 will be going to the Raptors in a game on March the 13th. So that's obviously a big deal for them. He was there a long time, wore the C for a long time. Certainly one of their better two-way players and overall, recently retired greats in their organization. So nice to see them going down that road. So he's certainly deserving of that honor. We also got word today that the Carolina Hurricanes are going to be down a couple of defensemen. Tony DeAngelo and Brett Pesce have both run into COVID protocols. So obviously they must have had a positive test here recently. So that's not good news for them. Hopefully they'll make out okay. And certainly bad news for the Hurricanes, who lose a couple of key members of their blue line. So that's certainly not going to help matters. But the Canes are a pretty deep team, and hopefully they'll be able to manage here without them. Hopefully it's not going to be too long. A few other injury updates. We did get word that defenseman Ryan Murray in Colorado is going to be out for in an extended time. We don't have an exact timeline yet, but he suffered a lower body injury on the weekend and is considered out indefinitely. But some better news with the Avalanche is they are expected to get back Nathan MacKinnon. Apparently could be back as early as this coming Wednesday. We also found out today that the Penguins had Evgeny Malkin at practice in the full practice, not skating on his own. So that's certainly good news. He did have a non-contact jersey on, so he still has a little ways to go. But the fact that he's participating in a full practice is certainly a good news and a good step here in the right direction. Obviously, he'll have a little longer to go to get into the full contact mode, so he's clearly still a little ways away. Many had suspected we might be around Christmas time or into January before he actually plays, and it's really difficult to say exactly what the timeline will be, but definitely at least a few weeks, I think, is probably fair to say here for sure. And since our last video, we did talk about the Brad Marchand hearing that was taking place today for a slew foot against the Vancouver Canucks and defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson. We did get word since that video was recorded and published that he has been handed a 3-game suspension. Now, I think the reason he got 3 games, to be completely honest, is because his name is Brad Marchand and he has history. Obviously, we've seen several other situations with the exact same, or pretty much the exact same outcome here, with the slew foot being a thing of, like I said, way more common lately than we've ever seen before. I don't know what's going on lately, but the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, there's been a lot of them. I mean, PK Subban himself was involved in I think it was 4 different situations. Most of the time we've been given out has been fines. So the fact that he gets not only suspended, but a 3-game clearly is because of who he is and his past history. Now, I believe he's been had issues with this particular play, not just when it comes to being suspended for other things, because he's had a variety of issues over the years. But I'm certainly a little bit surprised that it's quite so harsh, just given the recent history that we've seen with other players in the exact same thing. So this kind of goes along with my common complaint that I feel that NHL player safety is not really always consistent across the board. I do completely agree and understand that depending on the player and their history, all that's going to be factored in. So you might have 2 exact plays with a different outcome depending on who the player is and what they've done in the past and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. But this is quite a drastic change. 3 games compared to a $5,000 fine or less is a major difference. Brad Marchand over those 3 games is going to end up forfeiting over $90,000 in actual income that he would earn in that time frame. So that's certainly a big blow, a lot worse than, a $2,000 or $5,000 fine like we've seen in other cases. One other interesting note here today, as well as we know that the NHL players are still hoping to go to the Olympics. There's a lot of concern with the rise in COVID cases. We've had the Senators be shut down for 3 games. The Islanders are currently shut down for 2 games. And we could have more happen. We don't really know, but there's more cases around the league. It's certainly higher than we would have expected by now. And of course, they're going to be traveling over to Beijing. The rules are going to be pretty tight over there. There's a lot of talk that if you become positive or have a positive test while you're in Beijing, that you might have to do a 3-week quarantine, which is pretty substantial. Like, you could be there well past the Olympics, especially if it happens later into the games. There's just a lot of stress right now, a lot of pushback by some, but ultimately the players still feel like they want to go and they want to be there. But part of that process was they had to submit a roster, I believe it was 50 to 55 players on an early preliminary list, and that the players that they actually end up putting on the final rosters will be from those players. Now, of course, those were already submitted a while back. Apparently, Team Sweden is trying to get an exception because Lucas Raymond was not on that list. Of course, at this point, I guess they didn't suspect he would be doing so well in his rookie year at the NHL, and they're apparently pushing to get an exception from the IHF to have him included. Now, I'm not sure how successful this is going to be. To be completely honest, I don't really think it's fair that they would be able to do that, and if they grant this exception, I wouldn't be shocked if other countries try to do the exact same thing, because they could have had players that are not on their preliminary list of 50-some players, but might be having exceptional seasons right now that they didn't anticipate, and they might want to consider for a spot. So obviously that's going to be something interesting to follow, but clearly he's gotten their attention, and he, along with Mo Seider, his teammate, are certainly the leading contenders right now for the Rookie of the Year candidate, and we'll see if anything changes as the season goes on, because a lot of the other top contenders for that just have not lived up quite to the hype this season so far. So we'll see where that goes, and like I said, it could be a precedent-setting thing that if they get their way, other countries wouldn't be shocking and surprising if they tried to do the same thing. Now, of course, some updates here on the whole situation with the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, really since Saturday night into Sunday, it's been major changes going on. Of course, Saturday night we got word that assistant GM Scott Mellanby resigned, and then yesterday we got word that Bergevin and longtime assistant Trevor Timmons, who was responsible for the draft, were let go as well. And we know that Jeff Gorton is in as an executive vice president. So essentially, it sounds like from what all the reporters are gathering here, kind of putting all their thoughts together with all the intel they've been able to gather, that Scott Mellanby some feel he was promised the job, others feel like he was just recommended by Bergevin. So it's hard to say what the exact real story is. At the end of the day, we know that Marc Bergevin's contract has been expired, or about to expire, and that the negotiations did not go well to extend him, and that many believe this was going to be his last year. Well, it's believed that he's recommended Mellanby to ownership to take over and be the next GM of the Montreal Canadiens, or at the very least be considered, if they were going to do a president of hockey ops or like an executive vice president like they've done with Jeff Gorton here, that he would be part of that two-headed monster, if you will, to lead the franchise. And Jeff Molson informed him, I believe in the last day or two here, that that wasn't going to be the case. So he decided if that's not what he was going to be given, that he was going to leave. So clearly they saw the writing on the wall. And it's also been reported that Marc Bergevin had no idea that Jeff Gorton was being hired, and all that stuff was going on. So he learned of a lot of that news through the media and social media like everybody else. So he felt a little bit blindsided by the team's decision and Jeff Molson's decision to move on there. But we've certainly had a lot of talk in the last 24 hours about who are the candidates, who is Montreal going to be talking to. We know that it's important to them to have a French-speaking general manager. There's all kinds of candidates. I mean, as much as that does limit them to a particular pool of people, which many feel isn't the best way to do things, I do understand the importance of the language to deal with the French media and the French fans, and there's lots of good candidates. So I must say that fit that criteria that have decent amount of experience. So names that we're hearing now, there's been a lot of talk about Patrick Roy. At this point, we have no confirmation that they've reached out to speak to him. I know Jeff Merrick's made comments on that a couple of times, that still no confirmation they've talked to him. To be honest, I won't be shocked if they do talk to him, and as much as he might have some interest, I don't think it's going to be ideally what he wants. We know Patrick Roy really likes to have a lot of say in everything, and I don't see him being somebody who would work incredibly well with Jeff Gorton. I think he would want to be that guy on his own. I don't really see that being a great fit, but I know it's a name that's been linked to this franchise forever, and I guess you never know. We'll see where that goes, but to me, that would be a bit of a surprise if that takes place. Daniel Briere is getting a lot of attention. Of course, Briere, French-Canadian, born in Quebec, played for the Habs for a while, longtime NHL player, had a good career, is working in different management roles since he's retired. Currently, he's spent, I think it was 5 or 6 years, working as a GM at the East Coast League level, which was an affiliate of the Rangers, where he would have reported to Jeff Gorton. So there's a connection, not only to being, that French-Canadian guy who's getting management experience to be a candidate in that respect, but he's also got the connection to the new boss in the organization. So that makes so much sense. And I know it's back even a few years ago, he was even being talked about as being a candidate for other GM roles, but apparently he said he wasn't feeling he was quite ready yet. But of course, that was a few years ago. He's got a couple more years of experience now, and you never know. So that's another name to watch. Of course, there's Matthew Darch, who was a journeyman player, went through one of those long-time guys that took a long time to get to the league, played a bit with the Montreal Canadiens. He's getting some names, name dropping out there. You got Vincent Danfus, a former NHL player, has a lot of history with Montreal. We've heard Roberto Luongo's name is out there. Of course, again, a French-speaking Canadian, currently working in a management role with the Florida Panthers. We've heard Marty Brodeur's name being mentioned. Again, another guy, French-Canadian, never worked or played for the Habs like Luongo, but, from the area, and certainly working in a management type role for a while now with the Devils and previously with the Blues. So certainly a couple of guys there. In Luongo's case as well, look at all the experience he's getting recently with Hockey Canada. That's certainly preparing him for that kind of role. Whether or not any of them are interested, I don't know. But these are names that are out there. You can't exclude a guy like Martin Madden, who's worked with the Ducks as well. He's gotten a lot of attention. Even some key agents, top-notch agents like Pat Brisson or J.P. Barry. I mean, their names have been mentioned as potential candidates too. Even Jocelyn Thibault, of course, who has connection to the franchise and has certainly been working in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So there's all kinds of French-Canadian born former hockey players for the most part. Most of them played at the NHL level. A lot of them with Montreal, not all. There's a slew of people there that they're expected to talk to. I would say right now that the couple top candidates getting the most attention, the most likely would be Briere, maybe Darch, or maybe Madden. To me, those are probably your top three. But obviously, there's lots of other good ones there too, and we don't know which direction Jeff Gorton is going to want to go in. So we will see. It's going to be a hot topic discussed a lot here in the next little while, of course, until they make a decision. And one of the comments I thought was very interesting in the press conference today from Jeff Molson was talking about some of the things that led to were the decisions he's made here over the past 24 hours. And when it comes to Trevor Timmins, one thing he did note on, which what I talked about yesterday, is the draft record. Not only have they missed on a lot of first round picks, but he said in the last decade they've had 2 number 3 overall picks, and neither one of them are on the roster today. And that was Alex Galchenyuk and, of course, Kotkaniemi. Neither one of them lasted in the organization for very long, and to have a pick that high and to not have that workout, those are picks you just can't afford to miss on. Not to mention, like we went through yesterday in the video when all the news came down about them being let go. I went through the draft record Trevor Timmins has been responsible for, and it's not pretty. They've had a lot of first round picks. There's almost nobody on the roster. You can't even really, it's too early to look at guys like even Cole Caulfield or Caden Gooley, but everybody else beyond that, like Ryan Paling's there, but he's still 5 years after being drafted, not a regular. So that doesn't look good. The few guys they had to work out to be decent players were traded. like Sergachev, for example, for Jonathan Drouin. That's probably something that Bergevin would like to have a do-over on. So we'll see. That's still in a situation to watch closely. Before we jump into the trade talk for today, we do need to pause for a quick moment. Today is Cyber Monday. Lots of great deals still going on for retail shopping. So we do need to get a quick blurb here from our channel sponsor, Manscaped.
Unwrap big savings during Manscaped.com's Cyber Monday sale with 25% off and free shipping. Gifts for grooming from your nose to your toes and everything in between. With prices this good, you might as well get the whole package. Like our Performance Package 4.0 all-in-one grooming kit. So grab these deals while you still can. Go to manscaped.com and get 25% off plus free shipping during our Cyber Monday sale.
For watching that content, I do greatly appreciate it. Hope you'll consider checking them out and looking at their sale, which ends after today. On to the rest of the video where we'll have some trade rumors to look at. When it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, they're kind of referenced here in two different situations. One on the Evander Kane front. Now, Evander Kane, of course, as suspension's almost over, the Sharks look like they want nothing to do with him. They put him on waivers. He is cleared. He will report to their AHL affiliate, according to his new agent, Dan Milstein. Of course, he previously had a different agent, and that agency, which I believe was CAA, is listed in his lawsuit because it's believed that he actually still owes them commission. He's one of they're one of his creditors by the looks of things. So no wonder he got new agents. That's not a shock. So Milstein has indicated here publicly that he will indeed report, so he's not going to be suspended for not reporting. That much we can confirm. But he's also done some interviews, and according to Vancouver media like Rick Dollywall has indicated with statements from the agent that they have several options on the table, including potential trades, and one of the teams he will be talking to is Vancouver. So clearly the Canucks are in a situation where they've had a terrible season. A lot of things have gone wrong. A lot of fans are calling for change, but I don't really think this is the change that they're really were thinking. Obviously, the Sharks have made it known, and this is not news. This has been mentioned that we've talked about for quite some time, that they will retain up to half of his salary. So that $7 million income could become $3.5 million, but they're likely going to want some kind of something else. Like the other teams that take him on are probably going to want a sweetener or to have a bad contract go the other way or something. I don't know what kind of deal we're talking about. I don't really think the Sharks can demand much of an asking price. They just want him to move on. But at the same time, the money has to work for both sides. And we'll see. I'm not really sure why Vancouver would be one of the teams here. I know it's his hometown team and all, but everything they're going through, do they really need this kind of distraction? It's hard to say, but according to Milstein, there's the Canucks and other teams. But at the same time, it wouldn't be completely shocking if some of that might be kind of a little bit of a stretch just to kind of help boost the interest in the player. But you have to think, though, at $3.5 million, with what he can do on the ice, will there be a team out there that will take a chance on him? It's really honestly debatable. I've listened to a difference of opinion here from a few NHL reporters today, and listening to Frank Saravalli of the dailyfaceoff.com. He doesn't think there's any chance a team is going to want to take Kane on at all. Not at all. Now, listening to some others, I think that maybe for $3.5 million for a guy who can be a power forward and maybe score 20, 30 goals, that somebody will give him a chance, and maybe they will. But this is going to be a real tricky situation. I'm surprised he's linked to the Canucks of all teams, and we'll see where it goes. Now, when it comes to Vancouver, though, they're apparently also getting a ton of calls with interest on captain Bo Horvat. Now, that's not a huge surprise. He's a pretty good hockey player, a great leader, a real solid two-way player as well. Still has another year left on his contract. And I think a lot of what's kind of holding things on here from happening and all these trade requests is we don't know what ownership is going to do. Like at this point, it sounds like they're trying to find replacements for Jim Benning and Travis Green, and they're not going to make any announcements until they have their new people lined up. We don't know when that's going to be, but you almost have a look at Travis Green on the bench, like he wants to be put out of his misery and put out to pasture here. So they got to do something soon. It's just not right to keep this dragging on and keep the stress level so high within this organization. So we'll have to wait, hopefully get something done here soon. But really, when it comes down to it, the Vancouver Canucks, if they end up going down a rebuild, it just doesn't make sense for a guy like Horvat, who's already 26 years old with a year left. Is he going to want to stick around for that? I'm going to say probably not. So given what NHL teams would want to do for the playoffs and the NHL trade deadline, adding players, he would be a terrific addition to a lot of teams, especially going for a Stanley Cup. So there will be a ton of interest in this player. It's not surprising to hear they're getting a ton of phone calls. We know that there's interest for JT Miller from Minnesota, that's for sure. Brock Besser's name has been out there. We haven't really heard as much about him. I'm not sure that the Vancouver Canucks are really actively shopping anybody right now, but I think they're getting a ton of calls because the vultures are circling. They see blood in the water. They know that something's going to have to give here soon, and they want to kind of get ready. But I'm not sure Jim Benning really at this point even has full authority to make trades without ownership signing off on it. So I don't know if we're going to see much yet. I think we'll see a firing or a replacement before we'll see any of that, and the new people coming in will likely be the ones to handle that and decide who stays and who goes. But for now, they're getting a lot of interest in Horvat, which really shouldn't come as a big surprise. And lastly, in Boston, Jake Debrusk has formally made a trade request to be out of the Boston organization. This shouldn't really come as a surprise. He's been a player that's been mentioned in trade talk for the last year and a half. It's believed that Debrusk has actually wanted out of Boston for a long time. He's not overly thrilled with how things have been handled there. He seems like every time you think a trade's going to happen, they bring him back into lineup. He'll play good again for a short period of time, kind of get back in their good graces, but then things fall off. The consistency has been a huge issue for Debrusk in Boston. Still has a lot of potential. I think he can be a solid 20 to 30 goal guy in the right situation, but not to say that he hasn't been in a good one there, because he's had a chance to play with a lot of great players. I'm not really sure what is so challenging about putting it all together given his skill set, but it just has not worked out. And at this point, the Bruins have agreed to do their best to accommodate the situation. After a decent start to the year, he's now at a point again where he's been a healthy scratch. And like I said, the Bruins were off to a good start, and now they're having their struggles too. So from the Boston perspective, they need to do something anyway. It only makes sense with his struggles that it makes sense that they finally cut the cord here and move on. I don't know exactly where the good landing spot would be for Debrusk. I've seen some on social media suggesting a 1-for-1 trade with Chicago for Dylan Strome. I'm not really sure we're going to see that. I'm not sure that would be a great deal, but could it be a 1-for-1 trade? It's possible. Or it could be a scenario where Boston maybe recoups some future assets and then tries to maybe use those future assets if they do want to, go for it and add more experience, that they could kind of flip that for something else. But there's lots of names out there that the Boston Bruins could potentially be looking at for a more experienced winger who can hopefully be more consistent. So only time will tell here. At this point, we don't have anything imminent to report or suggest that he's heading to any specific team, but it's fair to say at this point that a Jake Debrusk trade is finally likely going to happen. That request has finally been formally made. Like I said, he's reportedly been wanting it off the ice for quite a long time, just never made a formal request until now. So we'll see where this goes, and if he plays for the Bruins at all moving forward, it might make sense for them to protect their asset here, leave him off the ice, and try to figure out something sooner than later. So let me know, where do you think Jake Debrusk will end up? Give me your mock trades down in the comments, and we will discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.